Welcome to Grounded. It's probably the first video you're going to find to my YouTube channel. Whether you've come to this video through my any of my social media links or through the website, feel free to follow us to keep up to date with our content. We've currently got a lot of up and coming events, so if you really want to get the hands-on experience, then follow the links below. Go over, follow our other social media platforms where we regularly post content, keep you up to date with what is going on with Grounded. But this video today is all about, it's a little introduction to the first teaching, which is mindfulness and meditation. Now, I describe mindfulness and meditation in many ways. Today I'm going to use the path of what has been experienced versus the experiencer. Now, when I use what has been experienced, I'm referencing our thinking mind, which gives rise to our sense of self. So our thinking mind, which is the noise that we have in our head, this compulsion to think, this almost an addiction to thinking, is actually generated by reflection. So our thinking, in its very primary function, is reflection, and what we are reflecting on is our past. We're reflecting on our past experiences. So if we look at our mind is a log, a memory log of all that we have experienced, and through what we have experienced, when we experience something and it makes us feel in a certain way, it makes us feel a particular way, we then interpret that feeling, we get like and dislike. And it's through liking and disliking that we formulate our beliefs, we formulate our sense of self, we formulate our ideas and our concepts about the world. This, what I call, what has been experienced, becomes the ground of our identity. But at the same time it's very limiting, and it's limiting because the whole structure of it is built by our experiences. So we are limited, our understanding of ourselves is limited, and our understanding of the world is limited to what we have experienced. So when I reference the experienced, I'm referencing that personal sense of self, that personal identity, that this is me. This psychological self, this individual point is me, this is who I am. And who I am is based on what I have experienced. And the experienced, that sense of separate self, is currently what human beings are identified with. But behind what has been experienced is the experiencer, that which is experiencing. So we have the experienced, which formulates sense of self, personal identity. And then we have the experiencer. And the experiencer is now, that which you're experiencing now. Anytime you move into the experienced, you're moving into past. But if you stay with the experiencer, you stay wherever you are. You stay wherever you are present in this moment. The experiencer, that which is experiencing, can only experience this moment. You can only be the experiencer now. And the experiencer is a different state of consciousness. It has its own ground. If we say the experienced personal sense of self, the ground of that is the collective memory of the past, where the experiencer has the ground of now. And it's the experiencer that we need to realize more in our lives. The point in which you are always the experiencer only identified with the experienced. And it's the experience I is the fundamental, it's the undercurrent to your life, it's the very ground to your whole existence. But the experience has its own state, has its own awareness, it has its own flavour. To be present, to be the experience to realise the state of just the experience to realise it more, to penetrate it more, it has its own frequency, it has its own consciousness, it has its own awareness. And this is the split that humanity is moving towards. This is the next level of self-awareness. So through mindfulness and meditation, we learn to be more of the experience we learn to recognise that state. As we begin to recognise that state, we begin to merge more with it, realise it more, penetrate it more, become it more. And then what actually happens is a separation begins. A separation from the experiencer being contained with what has been experienced. The experiencer believing itself to be, or fully identified. So the fresh, the part of us that's true, that is most true, is identified with the experience, it's identified with the mind, it's identified with the body. But through mindfulness and meditation, there begins the separating process where the experience realises itself more, realises it is not what is being experienced, realising that its sense of self is not this collectiveness of past. It actually realises itself for what it truly is. So the things that we look for in our lives, like contentment, joy, peace, unconditional love, abundance, they are contained, they are the essence, they are the flavour of the experience, that state of awareness. This is where these naturally come from. They naturally arise out of that self-realised state. Whereas the state of the experienced is always trying to move, it's a state of discontent, it's a state of never feeling complete, it's a state of always an undercurrent of some sort of dis-ease within your life. The fact that we have to look for happiness shows that on some level there is discontent there. If we have to look for happiness, if we have to generate happiness, if we have to find happiness, then the needing for it, the wanting for it must come out of a place of discontent. And so the experienced, our psychological sense of self, is a state of discontentment. And the reason it's a state of discontentment is because it's built, the whole purpose of the personal sense of self is to move away from pain, to move away from suffering, to move away from the discontent that it feels. But this video is just a basic teachings, one of my basic teachings, the very first teaching of mindfulness and meditation, and distinguishing between the two states. I'm going to go deeper into explaining how our personalised sense of self is actually built on top of pain, is actually built in avoidance. So this is why our personal sense of self is so painful. But to be within the state of the experiencer, that which is experiencing always, that which is always present in your life, that undercurrent, is a state of wholeness, a state of completedness, a state of there's no individual point, there's no start, there's no finish. It's a state of peace, it's a state of freedom, it's a state of liberation, it's a state of knowledge, it's a state of wisdom, it's a state of joy, it's a state of contentment. Anyway, that was a little teaching of the difference and what we're trying to achieve. through mindfulness and meditation. Through mindfulness and meditation, we're moving into the experience realising the experience more and more fully. To the next one, love, peace and joy to all.